Welcome to the Next Level Podcast, powered by San Manuel, a series connecting you with the best minds in casino, hospitality, tribal government, and beyond. Enjoy the show.
Chase Lane, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Kyle. It's good to see you again, sir. How are you?
Likewise, it's good to see you. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. I think there's a lot to get into now with you running the helm there at LT, formerly known as Lane Terralever, but we always like to start with the origin story. So for those who are not familiar with your story, rather than me read your bio and all your credentials, connect the dots for us on kind of early Chase, what you're into, where you grew up, and kind of key influential moments throughout your career that ultimately led to what you do today.
Yeah, absolutely, Kyle. I'm very, very happy to do that. I think what you'll find is it's a little surprising that I ended up at LT, as you said, formerly Lane Terralever. We're a full service marketing and advertising firm. We operate in a lot of different spaces, but casino is my favorite, to be honest, and one of our larger areas. And we're proud to be, one of your partners. But a little bit about myself. So I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. That's where I live today. Went to, school like everybody else. Actually went to a Catholic Jesuit high school, and my wife went to the Catholic high school, all girls next door. And so I actually met my wife in high school. So we've been together for 18 years. Her name's Kelsey. She's an established attorney here in Phoenix. But I always like to start with that because that really was, I think, the most formative part of me and my career and my life ever since that point. I grew up in and around the ad business. This business, LT, has been part of my family in one way, shape, or form actually since 1962. So my grandfather and my father after him, and I grew up walking around the halls of the agency and learning from the creatives about what it takes to make a beautiful creative campaign, and just watching all the energy and excitement. And I just kind of fell in love with it, and it colored a lot of the way that I still see the world today and think about business. So grew up in the business, but never really thought I would make my way back. So after high school, I decided to attend the Air Force Academy. So for those who aren't familiar, the United States Air Force Academy, it's the Air Force's version of West Point or of Annapolis. So it's a service academy. And when you graduate, you go into the Air Force as an officer and you serve for a period of time. So went to the Air Force Academy. It was amazing. Have a lot of stories from there. It wasn't always amazing. It was also very hard, but it was amazing in hindsight. That's for sure. Studied business while I was there. Learned a lot about leadership and a lot about values, and met some incredible mentors that really shaped my thinking about life and about values and about business and about how to apply all those things that I still use a lot today. My first job out of the Air Force, I was helping to purchase, I was sort of an acquisitions officer is what it's called. So project management, procurement, that type of work. I was helping to buy search and rescue helicopters and search and rescue equipment. And that was amazing. And I felt really good. But sometimes, Kyle, government work can be a little bit slow. And so I kind of decided that I wanted to do something a little bit faster paced. And I wanted to continue my education. And so I was lucky enough for the government to send me to graduate school as a military assignment. So I got to spend 2 years at the University of Notre Dame. There I studied business again, got my MBA, and really, again, just very, very values focused, that organization that aligned with me personally. And so I felt that it was strengthening my spirit as well as my business acumen, and had just a wonderful, wonderful time there. From there, I had a really tough assignment next. They sent me back to the Air Force Academy to be a teaching professor. So I taught there for 3 years in the business school that I graduated from, which was amazing and just very perspective shifting. As you can imagine, you're back as a teacher and as an officer and not as a cadet. And I just love that job, just graduating students to go be officers in the Air Force, to serve our country, to serve our community. There's really nothing more memorable in my career than watching my students walk across the stage and graduate. And I'm deeply thankful for that experience. And after that, I decided it was time to get out of the Air Force and use the MBA and use the business experience. So I spent about 3 years in management consulting, working for a firm called Kearney. It's a global management consulting partnership. You probably wouldn't have heard of it, but it competes with McKinsey, Deloitte, BCG, those types of firms. And so I was traveling a lot. I was living in the DC area, and my wife's commuting, and we have a young son at the time. He was born in 2018. His name's Clark. He's also pretty amazing. I hope someday you'll get to meet him. I'm sure you will. And I'm on the road 4 or 5 days a week, consulting for Fortune 500 clients, usually industrial-based clients, a lot of factories, a lot of operations strategy all over the country. And leaving my poor wife at home to deal with all that. So we decided it was time to move back to Phoenix, and we did, to get around family, since we're both from here. And we've been here since 2019. And then, COVID hit and all the chaos of that. And I decided I kind of wanted to change careers again and get off the road. And I joined a company called Stratitech Education Group. And Stratitech owns and operates skilled trade schools. So teaching welders, HVAC techs, electricians, that kind of work. And my job there was to help the company grow and expand, open new campuses, new programs. It was really great and really satisfying job. But then the opportunity came to join the gaming world and the casino gaming world. And I just had to jump at it because it was so exciting. And so I had the opportunity to spend about 3 years at Light & Wonder. And for those who don't know, Light & Wonder is formerly Scientific Games. Light & Wonder is a large OEM in the casino gaming space. So they make the slot machines, they make the table games, the casino systems, they do online gambling where it's legal. And they also do social casino, which is, casino themed games that are free to play. And there I did operations and operation strategy work, helping to drive processes, helping to optimize the P&L, helping with organizational strategy. And it was really very satisfying. But the opportunity came up to come back to LT. And really that opportunity came up because the former CEO, Chris Johnson, a business partner in the business, along with my father, Bo Lane, he decided he wanted to take a step away and start a second business called Tomorrow Today, which does AI consulting, which is really exciting. And my father, Bo, said, I'm a little far removed now. I've been a chairman for a while. I'm not really ready to step back in. And so it opened up the opportunity, just window in time for me to come into the business. And I thought a lot about it, and I spoke to my wife and all of my mentors, and I said, you know what, it's almost meant to be. It's time for me to come back and take the helm and help take LT into its new chapter. And so I just started. You're getting me early, Kyle. So don't ask me too many hard questions. I started on the 3rd of February, and here I am. So that's me and my background in a nutshell.
That's quite the story. I have so many follow-up questions. I wrote down so many notes. You've done a lot of living in a young life. I want to start though with what you said was, because I was going to ask this question, like, what is the most impactful moment before you were 25? And you said meeting your wife. So for those listening, I think that's good tips as far as, that relationship. How has that served you? Because I've seen Air Force, teacher, slot tech product, Light & Wonder side. The list just goes on and on. University of Notre Dame. You've done a lot of living. So all those different shifts, just broad question, take it where you want, but you're saying that's the most important moment. Why is that?
Because she's the only thing that's never shifted. She's the one that's always been there. And it's not just her always being there for me. I'm always there for her. Right. I just, that is my marriage, and my relationship with my wife is the bedrock on which everything sits. My values are incredibly important to me. And I always tell people that that's the foundation of everything that I do, and every strategic priority I have and how I try to act in business. But even beneath that is her, and our relationship and our marriage. And we've been together. I'm 36 years old. We've been together for 18 years, Kyle, and married for 10. I probably made her wait too long to get married. But I pulled the trigger eventually. And, 5 years of that was long distance, but we always had each other. And so I think it's just that mutual support system, that shared vision for, who we want each other to be and who we want to be together. And we've always had that, and that no matter what I'm doing, no matter where I am, that's always something that I can lean back on to say, hey, I have this relationship it's half of our lives now. And it's meaningful and important. And so I've had a lot of influences and a lot of important mentors and people in my life. But she's the most important. So
I love that. And speaking of relationships, going back to the early days, your father, that dynamic of the family business, right? You said, I think I wrote it down, walking the halls of an agency. So you grew up kind of were immersed in the business. Your dad, grandfather, it's kind of in the DNA. Talk a little bit about your early career journey and the decision process, right? I think it's interesting to get your perspective, knowing that you were so immersed in this business and, why you chose the Air Force. Talk a little bit about that relationship in those early decisions to, I guess, one, kind of venture out of maybe typically following the path of what's kind of in the blood and the DNA, and also the process of choosing the Air Force.
Yeah, that's a weighty question, but I will do my best to answer it. So, I did grow up in that business or around that business, right? It permeated a lot of aspects of my life and my family life. And I think what I took away from it most was it taught me how to think differently. It taught me how to think like a marketer. It taught me to realize that, everything you see around you was put there by someone. And there's a reason for it, right? And it's designed to elicit a certain response or reaction, right? Like I walk around Yamava, Kyle, and I know that every slot machine is exactly where it is for a purpose. It's not random. It's designed, and it's designed to make sure people have the best possible experience that they can have when they walk in your doors. Everything about Yamava is designed that way, from the way that you're laid out, to the colors that you use, to the rooms that you have, to the care all of your employees place in their jobs, even to so much as the security guy and how he walked me out when I was there touring because I couldn't find the exit, and held the door open for me and said, "Have a good night, sir." Right? Like all of that is the product of people working together to make sure that somebody has an experience. And so I really just learned that early on, and it taught me how to think. But when I thought about what I wanted to do with my career, I don't know. I had a couple of things at play. Like, number one, I'm extremely patriotic. You can probably see there's a flag behind me right there. It's not behind me by mistake. It's there because I believe in our country, and I wanted to serve. I felt a calling to serve, a very strong calling to serve. And I wanted to earn some of the things that this country has given me and gave me growing up. I wanted to earn them. I wanted to forge my own path in my own way. And so military service seemed like a wonderful way to accomplish that. But I also know that I am not the guy who you want charging the hill or in the trench or flying the jet. It's just not me. I'm better suited for different things. And so I knew I wasn't going to join the Army. I knew I wasn't going to join the Marines. I don't like sleeping outside in a tent. I want to be in the air conditioning of the Air Force Base. And so I didn't want to live on a boat or a submarine. And that just wasn't how I was going to serve. And so when I thought about the best way to serve, really Air Force was the only real choice. I considered the Navy for a while as well, but I'm really glad I chose the Academy. And I really think I needed it. I think I had a lot of great aspects of my upbringing that sort of formed me into a person and a thinker, but I needed somebody to kind of strike the hammer and just solidify all of it, and really to teach me discipline. And that's what I learned at the Academy. I learned that values are important and they're uncompromising. And I already kind of knew that, but I got to see it in action. And I got to hear from people who've had to live those values when lives are on the line, which I've never had to do, but I've talked to many who have. And it just solidified for me how important those things are. And it taught me discipline and attention to detail and focus in ways that I didn't know were possible or reasonable to expect. And so it formed me, and I'm so incredibly glad that I did it. In a lot of ways, it changed and colored the arc of my career. And in some ways it put me behind, and in some ways it put me ahead, but I wouldn't trade that experience for the world.
You kind of touched on it, which maybe the answer is discipline, or maybe it's something else. But I was going to ask, what's the most important foundational thing you picked up from your time at the Air Force? And thank you for your service. And I love you describing kind of the self-awareness component. I think that's important. But of all the time that you spent there, what's the one thing you took from there that still serves you today? And maybe give an example of how it still serves you today.
Gosh, that is that's a good one. I would say I'll tell you a little bit of a story, but I say it has to do with integrity. And I think integrity is one of LT's values. It's one of my personal values. And I always say integrity is first, right? If you have integrity, it means you do the right thing when no one is watching. But it also means that you do things correctly even when people are watching. And I had this trainer, I'll use non-military terms, but he was basically like our drill sergeant, if you will. But he was a cadet. He was a senior, so a senior about to graduate. His name was Ian Helms, and Ian was our cadet flight commander during basic training, and so sort of our drill sergeant, if you will. And what we didn't know about Ian was that after he was done with us and in the academic year, he was going to go and be the cadet wing commander, which is the highest ranking cadet in the school, in charge of all other cadets. And what we also didn't know is that he was the number one in his class in all aspects. And so he was the number one graduate. And he also went on to Oxford after he graduated. So this is quite a man, Ian. And we didn't know that this is who he was. And so we got the best, my flight. We got the best trainer, I think. And he was obsessed with marching. And I didn't understand why until he finally told us. But he would have us drill marching in a flight, all in line, all in a row, all sized appropriately. And we would do it for hours and hours and hours and hours, and just so much marching. And no one else was doing this. No other flight was doing this, but we were. And we complained about it and we whined about it, and our feet hurt and it was hot and we were sweaty and we didn't like doing it. But Kyle, we were perfect. We were perfect. We could execute his commands almost intuitively. Just by listening to the tone of his voice, we knew if something was off, right? We could do it. And we were so proud of it. And then finally, once he thought that we were ready, he would take us up in front of this area called the honor wall. And if you can imagine the academy, it's sort of sunken down, and there's this wall where, tourists can stand and they can watch you, but you're, maybe 20 or 30 feet below them. And so it's sort of a perch. The academy is a big tourist attraction. So a lot of tourists that are watching. And the honor wall has the honor code of the academy. And it says, we will not lie, steal, or cheat, nor tolerate among us anyone who does. And it's the honor code at the academy. It's a commitment that everybody makes to, operate with integrity, to not lie, steal, or cheat, or tolerate among us anyone who does. And that was the best spot for the tourists to watch. And Ian took us there finally one day, and he said, "You're ready." And he marched us, and we drew a crowd, and everyone watched, and we were perfect. And what he said was, the reason why I've been doing this and the reason why I took you there for people to see you is because these people are here to see what their country is producing. They're here to see what their Air Force Academy, not yours, because it's not yours, it's theirs. They pay for it. It represents them. It represents our country. They're here to see what this place is producing. And I want them to see the absolute best so that they have full faith and confidence in our men and women in uniform when you are out in the world doing things in harm's way. And that was just so incredibly meaningful, that all those hours of practice when no one was watching, when no one cared, when it was hot, when it was raining, when it was windy and everyone else was inside, there was a reason for it. And it was to make sure that we could operate with integrity, and we could operate with unity, and we could operate with confidence when it mattered, when people were watching. And I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. And unfortunately, Ian Helms, he passed away very young at age, I think 30 or 31 from cancer. But I will never forget Ian. And I'm very glad that you asked me that question, because it gives me an opportunity to speak about him. And I hope a few more people will remember his name after watching this video.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That was powerful. And so sorry for that loss. One of the things I took from that is kind of two quotes that are pretty popular. Separation's in the preparation. I think that's for anything that the output is excellence, there's true preparation involved. Yeah. And another thing too, you spoke to, it was actually one of my favorite campaigns that Under Armour did. And this was probably, I don't know, my timeline's all wrong, but maybe like 2016. This is when Under Armour kind of came on strong there for a little bit with Tom Brady, Steph Curry. Yeah. They had Michael Phelps. And the campaign was, what you do in the dark will bring you to the light.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of the story you're speaking to, right? Is like maybe on the surface, it's hard, right? And it's almost maybe sometimes even question it. But then that output is excellence, right? And I think that applies because going back to the question, how that serves you today, I'm sure that serves you discipline, even when those little emotions come up within you, because you're human, right? That you can push through it and have that discipline to have that preparation because you've almost had this infrastructure and this upbringing within all your background that helps serves you today. Do I got that right?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Kyle. You're seeing it very clearly, and I think this is not unique to me in any way, shape, or form. I think any athlete, any member of any high performing team or high performing business, I'm sure this is how you think and operate at Yamava. I know it because I've seen it firsthand in your operations. So I think we're aligned on the thinking exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the kind of you talked about purpose and intention behind every single decision. I think that's key too for this output of excellence. Something I actually took from your group, I can't remember who said it, but this philosophy of speed with purpose.
Yeah.
And that saying to me, I use it with my team still to this day. It's like we can move fast, but we really have to start with the purpose and the why. Otherwise, we can move fast, but it'll be a disaster, right? So going slow, at least at first, for taking some time to kind of align on the vision of the strategy for whatever the project may be, that allows you to move fast and efficiently. But without it, it doesn't. And I want to come back to maybe some things at LT that you see in your philosophy and the culture you're trying to teach there. But going back to your background, another thing I thought was key to hit on is you've had a lot of career pivots. And I think this is helpful for this forum because people listening are either at that next level or striving to be at that next level. Maybe they're weighing a decision to go to a different state for a director position, or maybe they're not happy. They've done, making it up, 15 years in a certain sector, and they've kind of played with the idea of it just might be time for a new challenge. For you, kind of what's your advice as it relates to kind of career decisions and pivots? And when is it time to maybe jump in an opportunity? Not just curious to get your perspective when you weigh certain career decisions and pivots.
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I'll say it's always super hard, right? It's always super hard to leave one career and go into the other. It's not only hard because it's risky, but it's also just emotional, right? Like, I mean, people who listen to a podcast like this care about their careers and they care about the people around them, and they're invested in organizations. And so to say to an organization like, hey, see you later, I'm on to something new, can be like very emotionally difficult, especially when it's an organization you love. Like leaving the Air Force, Kyle, was brutally hard emotionally. It was the right thing for me to do, but leaving that organization was very hard. And I try to find ways to intersect my life back with it just so I can recapture some of my feeling and love for that place. So what I would say to people is don't be afraid of feeling those things, but don't let them guide your decisions. Use the other part of your brain, use the logic, use the calculation, use that executive function of your brain to say, this is the right decision for me, even if it's hard, even if it's risky. When you know. But what I would say is like, when you make a major pivot, as you have clearly drawn the line there, I've made a lot of pivots. I've worked in a lot of different industries, and I've gotten a lot out of each one. But I would say, I always tell people that I mentor that ask me that question, you got to have an end goal in mind. Like you have to say, I'm trying to go north. Let's use just directions. I'm trying to go north, and I have a vision to go north. And I know that there's something I'm going to that I want to achieve, whatever it is for you personally. If it's a title, if it's a certain type of financial security, if it's a feeling, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's a place you want to be, you don't know quite how to get there, but you know that it's north. And so even though you don't have a map, you can look at maps other people have drawn before, but you're not those other people. You're forging your own path, right? You're in the forest by yourself, and there's a mountain in front of you, and you don't know if you go around this way, or you go over. You don't have a map, and you probably don't have a trail, but you do have a compass. right? And you can use that compass, and you can say, I'm trying to go north, and on my current path, I'm going to go north. I know that, but it's over the mountain, and that's going to be really hard. And I don't know if I want to do that. I've got this other opportunity over here. It's going to take me a little bit off of north, but it's going to curve around that mountain. I think I see a valley, right? Like, so that's how I picture it in my mind. I say, okay, I got my compass. If I have to walk, west or east for a little bit, I'm not going to walk just west or east. I'm going to walk northwest or northeast, right? And I'm going to have my compass, and I'm going to know that at the end of the day, I'm still making progress towards getting north. And even if it's not direct, maybe it's an easier path, right? Maybe it's a better way for me to gain new skills. Maybe it's a better way for me to expand my network, or to get that next title that, I feel has been holding me back. Or I really want to explore this industry because I think it's going to be important to me when someday I finally arrive at that destination. And so you're always making forward progress, even if it's not exact, because you've got that compass. So that's the best analogy I can probably give for it. And that's why every choice I made tried to keep me going in the direction that I want to go, even if it wasn't linear, even if it was zigzaggy. So that's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. And I kind of want to double click on that a little bit, because it's really interesting perspective. Meaning, if I heard you correctly, some of your positions that you've had through different industries, maybe you didn't necessarily have, hey, I want to be CEO at this company, or, hey, I want to be vice president of this company.
Yeah.
Or maybe you did. But to me, what I'm getting from you is your kind of pull has always been progress. And sometimes that's within the field of the realm that you're in. And other times, maybe a pivot opened an opportunity. But your kind of main KPI was, am I getting better? Am I moving the direction up? Right. So it wasn't necessarily, or maybe you did, but did you ever have throughout any of those stops a macro goal of, I want to hold a certain title? Or no, it's simply been my kind of KPI, or my North Star is literally just making sure my momentum's moving forward. And to your point, maybe it's a side step, maybe it's a back step, but I feel like this pivot is going to ultimately launch me in a forward progression that maybe I wouldn't have had if I stayed.
Yeah.
Your thoughts there.
The way you're describing it is how I think of it, right? Like I've taken backward pivots in title. All you got to do is go look at my LinkedIn. I went from being a VP to a director at one point in my career because it was the right move. I didn't have to do that. No one forced me. I've never been let go from a position. It was a decision that I made. The opportunity came up, and I said, you know what? This is the right decision, because even though sure it's a step back in title, and maybe I got to walk a few yards to the other direction, a few hundred yards, but I could still go north, and I'm going to go through a different type of terrain or experience different experiences, build myself out in different ways so that I'm stronger. So it's always been that. It's always been about momentum, right? Like you can kind of think about it like a business. I know a lot of people listening to this are business people. Like think about a P&L, like an income statement, right? Like there's a lot of different ways to optimize that. Sometimes you reduce cost. Sometimes you increase revenue. Sometimes you hold revenue flat, but you are just super focused on margin. Sometimes you squish your margin because you need to make an investment, right? Like sometimes you're focused on cash flow. Sometimes you're not. Some businesses run negative for years because they're trying to build market share, right? Like there's so many different ways that you can get to where you're trying to go financially in a business. Like I just think about my life like that. There's a lot of different trades I can make. There's a lot of different things I can do. It's not all about one thing. It's not all about title. It's not all about industry. I love that you use the word momentum. It's all about that forward progress, that forward momentum towards what's next and where you want to be. And that's what I mean when I talk about the compass. So yeah, you're hitting it exactly on the head, exactly how I think.
So Chase, this is a perfect segue into a segment here we call the bigger picture, where I'm going to show, it could be a headline, it could be an image, and we just kind of riff. But this brings us to current day. So big headline here: LT ushers in a new era with appointment of Chase Lane as CEO. So before I get to this quote that I pulled from this article, just talk to us about, because your insight is really valuable for listeners out there, being the helm, the new leader. Talk to us about how you're feeling, your energy, your approach, just what it's been like to you from like an emotional standpoint,
Yeah.
these first few months.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's certainly emotion, right? Like, I mean, anytime you take a new job, I think it's emotional. Usually, I hope if you chose right, that's a positive emotional experience, right? You don't want to take a new job and say, "Oh man, I made a mistake," and that's certainly not how I feel. I feel really energized and excited to be in this job and to be able to lead LT. It's also emotional because this is a business that's been in my family in some way, shape, or form since 1962. Like I said, so there's a lot of weight. There's a lot of heritage. I got a photo of my grandfather right there who watches over me to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. And the desk that I'm sitting at right now was his desks, and then it was my father's desk after that. So every day I feel the weight of that, but I'm energized by it. I'm not broken by it or stressed by it. I'm excited to be here. And what really gives me that excitement and that confidence, it doesn't come from me. It comes from the people around me. It comes from the way that the business has accepted me, the way that all the executives and employees have rallied around me to help me be successful. I hoped that would happen, but I didn't expect it. But I hoped, and it has. Just every single person has been gracious with their time in training me, has been supportive, has questioned my decisions when they needed to be questioned, right? So it's really been the culture of this place and all of the people here that have allowed me to feel the confidence and excitement that I feel sitting at this desk and doing my very best to lead LT into its next chapter. So I am excited. I'm energized, but all that excitement and energy is provided to me just from the incredible support and incredible skills and professionalism of all of the team members here at LT. And I hope at least one of them listens to this and hears how thankful I am for that, because it really makes such a big difference. So that's kind of how I'm feeling.
If me and you were to jump in a time machine and go back, let's say 4 years, and I were to say, "Hey, Chase, guess what? You're going to be the CEO of LT." You would have said what?
I would have laughed at you and said, "That's never going to happen." I would have said, "Kyle, that sounds awesome, and I've thought about that since I was a small child, but I'm not right for it. I don't know a lot about marketing, and I think that the business is going to be just fine without me. I'm not sure what value I would add, and I don't think that that's my path." Is probably what I would have told you. But I would say, but it's certainly not something that I wouldn't be honored to do. I would love to do it, Kyle. I just don't think it's in the cards for me. That's what I would have said.
Look at that. Just look at how much things could change.
Yeah.
I'm going back to your Compass story, right? Like, I think I've said this with a past guest. I think it's a Steve Jobs quote. It's basically, you can't connect the dots to success, whatever that looks like for you, looking up. It only makes sense looking back, right? And I think that speaks to your career arc of all these different skill sets that you obtained from the Air Force and Notre Dame and your schools and all the different kind of spots throughout your career. Like, you wouldn't put that on the typical, "Hey, this is how I'm going to run the CEO of a big agency." No. But here you are, and you bring a unique skill set. And I want to get to this quote you have here from this article. It says, "As we author our next chapter, I will focus on evolving our services, expanding our presence in Arizona and nationally, and continuing to drive exceptional results for our clients." So, in its simplest form, if you can only use one word, what's going to make this vision, this that you're speaking to in this quote, what's going to make these things happen?
Values.
Ooh. Could you expand on that?
That is the one word. Our values here are real, and they're serious, and they form the foundation of everything that we do. Speed with purpose is one of our values, right? So our values, I believe in them. I believe they're the foundational bedrock of everything that we do. Every single one of my strategic priorities is firmly rooted in one of our values. Our culture is values first and values focused. I just believe, in business, this, Kyle, like, sometimes you're winning and sometimes the hits come. right? But if you are on a rock solid foundation that's unshakable, and everybody believes that and everybody shares them, then you're always going to stand firm, even in the biggest storm. Even if part of the house blows down, the foundation never cracks. So I think values, and I really truly believe that. And I also think this concept of chapter is really important. I chose chapter very, very deliberately. LT is in a new chapter, but it's not a new story. So, I conceptualize LT as in 4 chapters in our history. Chapter 1, the founding of E.B. Lane and Associates in 1962 by good old Ed up there. That's chapter 1. And then chapter 2 is, I put it around, call it the year 2002, which is when TerraLever was founded, which is the other half of the business, founded by Chris Johnson and his wife, Kim Johnson. Chris is one of our chairmen today, along with Bo, and Kim is our EVP of Finance and COO. So still both involved. So chapter 2 is these 2 businesses running independently. One very traditional in its marketing approach, one very digital and moving fast and breaking things and evolving. And that's chapter 2, 2 stories that don't intersect. Chapter 3 is the 2 businesses come together. And I believe what Chris said, CJ, Chris Johnson, I might call him CJ. He goes by CJ. So Chris and CJ are the same person, to be clear. Chris said, we knew it was time for us to come together and to form the agency of the future. And that's what they did. They came together in 2013 to form Lane TerraLever, now LT, because no one can spell TerraLever and it causes problems on emails. So we're LT now, but chapter 3 was Lane TerraLever growing and these businesses coming together and all the fantastic, wonderful things that they did. Starting the relationship with you, right, and so many other clients. But now I just think it's interesting timing, right? We've rebranded to LT, and I've come in, and so it's time for chapter 4. And I am going to help author chapter 4, but it's going to be written by all of our employees and it's going to be grounded in those values. And we're not going to forget chapter 3. We're not going to forget chapter 2. We're not going to forget chapter 1. This is, and this is not a new book, right? It's just a new chapter. There's going to be storylines from those old chapters that continue on. There's going to be conclusions to old adventures and there's going to be starts to new ones. There's going to be new characters and there's going to be characters that take a step out. But we're going to author what's next. We're going to honor our history and remember it, but we're going to author what's next. And we're going to take those values that history gives us, and we're going to lean into them even more than we already do, because it's not like I showed up and made LT a values first organization. It already is. It already was. I'm just making sure that we don't lose track of that and that we keep focus. So
something that was a constant as you talked about those chapters in this current chapter that you're in was evolution and change. I got the sense that that's kind of been the foundation of your success there for a long time. So my question is, as you look ahead, and maybe it's not crystal clear right now, but how do you think the industry, the industry that you're in, creative services, ad agency, media, digital, all that stuff that falls under the LT umbrella, what has you excited and what's capturing your attention as you think is a real opportunity? Because once again, I just felt this constant theme of what helped determine the next chapter was change and evolution. So from your standpoint, maybe you don't have a clear answer, but maybe you do. But what are you looking forward to and what gives you energy as you think about the industry going forward?
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a cliche answer because it's on everyone's mind, but it is the real answer. I think the intersection of artificial intelligence, right? AI. What is AI going to do for our business? How do we utilize this incredible new tool in order to do better work for our clients? And actually, for the last 4 or 5 months or so of my time at Light & Wonder, I was actually working at SciPlay, and SciPlay is the social casino arm of Light & Wonder. And my job there was to help define and implement the AI strategy for the business. So I've been thinking about AI for a long time. And as I mentioned to you, Chris Johnson, CJ, actually has founded Tomorrow Today, which is an AI consultancy, right? And so this is all CJ is thinking about in his spare time and in his business life, outside of supporting me and the rest of the executive team here with his good counsel and mentorship. He's running an AI business, and we're implementing it at LT, but we're going to figure out the best way to implement it. We're not going to replace people with AI. We're going to use AI to make people better, right? To improve processes, to improve our creative output, to track things better, to test assumptions, to improve service offerings for our clients, to work better. But we're not going to become just this, this soulless entity that runs on this, web of different AI agents and tools and softwares, right? Like the people are the soul, the people are the culture. I think that's what I've learned about AI is that's the best way to use it, is to help someone else do their job better and help us serve our clients better rather than replace the thinking. Because AI is smart, but humans are really the magic, right? AI is just an algorithm at the end of the day. It doesn't have heart, doesn't have soul, it doesn't have the creativity that a human mind has. And so I think AI is both the most exciting, most pressing, most fast moving part of most businesses right now. But in our world, in marketing and advertising, it's just so applicable that we would be silly not to embrace it and have it be part of our next chapter. So I think that's my answer on that, Kyle.
So could you, because AI gets thrown out a lot, and I feel like sometimes it's a buzzword, like S&P 500 companies will use it on their quarterly earnings call, and it's like, oh, the stock price went up, right? And so I think it might be helpful for the audience to understand, is there a tangible example you could provide where you all have implemented AI, and before AI it was produced in X and now it's Y? Maybe a story that speaks to the efficiency that you're speaking to.
Yeah. So actually, we have a really awesome executive on our team named Hannah Tooker. She's our SVP of Content and Organizational Transformation. And so think of the organizational transformation part as like, special projects that support our ambition to transform our organization to be more efficient, to be better, to be more culture focused. And then the content part is social media. I don't know. Content's the right word to use, but in my mind, still, it's the social media side of the business. Hannah was speaking on a client pitch actually the other day about how her team has been able to use AI tools that help them to generate and tweak content, as well as schedule and edit content. And, something that used to take them 4 weeks, 5 weeks, they're able to do now, in a week, maybe 2 weeks if they're slow and they're busy, just by using, AI tools to accelerate the work that they're already doing. And the work is at least of the same quality, if not better, because we're never going to let anything out the door here at LT that has our name on it that isn't good quality, but it's just faster. And that means her team can do, one of a few things. Like one, they could just hang out and like drink coffee and chill, right? But that's not Hannah. That's not Hannah. If you've met Hannah, you know that is not Hannah. Or they can take on more work, which is good for the business. It means we get to serve more clients. Or they can spend more time thinking strategically, right? They can spend that time thinking about like, okay, whereas before I might have done that upfront work that you talked about, Kyle, like on this project, I might have done that upfront strategy work, that upfront alignment, that upfront documentation. I might have done that in a day because I'm busy and I got all this work ahead of me. I can maybe spend 2 days on that now. I could spend 3 days. I could spend 4. I can really get it right. And that's just that's good for our clients, right? Because it means the clients are getting that human thinking. Are the experts, her team, they're experts in content. And if they can spend more time thinking about the content and what to do and less time producing it, that's a huge win. So I think that right there is just a real easy, obvious way in which, it has a big impact in our business today. It will continue to have impact like that across many different domains of business. But I think that's how people should think about AI. Think about it like an example, maybe in the creative space. Like your creative team used to be a whole room full of people at drafting tables, right? And they would draft by hand, like pencil or pen, right? I don't know. This was a while ago, right? And then that changed because we have this crazy thing called the computer, right? And now you can start to do things on the computer. And then Photoshop, right? I can do things in Photoshop now, and I'm getting more and more and more efficient And now we have all these crazy AI tools that can, even within Photoshop, that just accelerate that thought process. And so think of it like an accelerant to things that your business already does. Don't think of it like a quick fix, because if you think it that way, then you're never going to use it for anything meaningful, would be my advice.
Yeah. And especially kind of within the creative space you're speaking to, I'm really interested to see how it all plays out. I mean, it's really fascinating to watch, but could definitely see the use cases for almost being a co-collaborator with you, right? If you're stuck on an idea, being able to prompt correctly and be able to provide, to your point, it might not be 100% fleshed out, but it gives you something to work off of, right? And in return, it allows you to save some of that energy that we all have. We can't just be spinning our wheels all day. To be able to have that to help start things and finish things from an efficiency standpoint, 100%. And it's also going to open these new opportunities of how to use these tools, right? And can you really truly be, I know another buzz term is prompt engineer, but either way, like the way that you use these is it's a tool. So it's going to be really fascinating. And then also too, in creative land and ad agencies, typically what don't you hear is fast turnaround times. So this should prevent, like, if you have big campaign work and such, this will allow possibly creative resources to be better served there. And then maybe some of that quicker turn and burn. Now we're getting in 2 to 3 days versus, 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Really, yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah.
No. I want to pivot here a little bit, and thank you for the time. I'm looking up. I can't believe it's already been 46 minutes.
Oh my gosh, it has. Okay. Well, I have whatever time you'd like. I don't have anything on the back half of this. So anything you need, Kyle.
So advice to your 18-year-old self. So it's always fascinating with, like I said, for being so young, you've lived a lot of life, but going back to, I guess it would probably have been out of high school, probably about to step into the Air Force Academy. What would you tell that young kid knowing what you know now?
Man, I wish I could speak to that young kid. I think I would tell him or any young adult really is how they would think of themselves. But now I would think of myself as a kid, right? But anybody 18 years old, 17, 21, I don't know, in that time frame where you're really just figuring out who you are, I would say, hey Chase, you're about to do something really, really hard. Really hard, but you can do it. And hard things are worth doing. Hard things are what force you to grow. It is okay to feel challenged. It is okay to break as long as you put yourself back together. It's okay to feel like you're not going to make it. It's okay to feel, pushed down and it's okay to feel that pressure, because you will stand back up. And when you do stand back up, you will be so much stronger for having gone through that experience. So get ready is what I would say, because you got a lot of difficult things to do ahead of you. But you'll look back on this 18 years from now when you're me, time traveling back, and you'll know that those hard things that you did were the most important things in your life. And then I would tell him, trust Kelsey, because you love her and she loves you, and you're both going to do all of this together. So don't worry about whether she's there or not, because she is. So I think those are the things I would say.
Wow. So it's some powerful stuff. And I guess going the other way, slightly different question. Actually, no, I remember what I wanted to ask, because you talked about, that's great advice. It's something that I tell my kids is, we fall down, come back up. And even if you fall down, it's not go with speed, but like, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
So I guess for you on the career side, whatever you're willing to share, what was the toughest challenge you faced that kind of built you that confidence? So speaking to that 18-year-old kid, like, is there a story of maybe a setback or something on the career aspect that maybe at the time you looked at as, well, this isn't great, but in hindsight, maybe it unlocked a new level for you?
Yeah, gosh, that's a deep question. I'll continue to try to give you good and meaningful answers. I, I've had a really non-traditional background, right? Really non-traditional. It's as you said, it's not something that I ever would have expected. It's not something that you sit down with a career counselor and they're like, you know what you should do? You should switch careers like 4 times because that's definitely ideal in terms of how you get to where you're trying to go. And because of that, it's meant that a lot of people throughout my life have doubted my ability to do things, right? Because I don't fit a standard mold. And when you're making a decision, like I'm sure you probably hire or are involved in hiring a lot of people, Kyle. I know I know the marketing organization at Yanva is very large. I know you have a lot of responsibility. If you're analyzing candidates and you've got 2 or 3 candidates that fit the mold, and then you have one off here to the side that you're like, this is interesting, but doesn't really fit the mold. It's much easier to make a choice among those 3 than it is to take a risk, right? And so there's been at points, a lot of times in my career where I've been that one off to the side, kind of like, he's interesting, but he doesn't quite fit the job description that I have. And here's 3 people that do. So what choice am I going to make? So I think where that really hit me for the first time was leaving the Air Force, right? Where I'm like, hey, here I am, and I'm an Air Force Academy grad. I've served in the military. I've got an MBA. I've been teaching for 3 years, and now I want to go into management consulting. So obviously, all the big names are going to want me, right? Because I'm awesome, and I've got an MBA and all this good stuff and all this. But really, all the big names looked at my resume and they were like, "You were a teacher for 3 years? Like really? You went to Notre Dame. That's great, but you didn't. That's not really a target school, and that was 3 years ago, and you really only got 2 or 3 years of actual work experience, and then you went to school, and then you've been teaching. Like, I'm not sure that that's a good risk, right? Because I've got an MBA right now who's ready to graduate, who was an investment banker before they went and got the MBA, and now they want to be a management consultant, and that's my pipeline. Like, that's how 99% of the people here look. So why am I going to take a risk on you? And that was difficult, right? That was a difficult realization that I had, which was like, wow, Chase, you've kind of been doing your own thing and forging your own path, but not everybody sees it the way that you see it. And you can't just force them to have your perspective that you can do it. You can be a consultant, right? Because you think you can, but you haven't proven it and you don't have a normal background. And so how can you blame these people for having those questions? So I would say that's when it hit me the hardest the first time. And the way I solved for it is I just said, well, I'm just going to outwork everybody else. I'm going to start a consulting business. And so I did. I got it. If anyone in the Air Force is listening, I had it cleared by the attorneys. So I was spending all my free time working on consulting projects, proving to myself that I could do it, that I could generate revenue doing it, and building relationships so that when I got to the interview, I could say, yeah, I haven't done consulting for a firm, but here's all the clients that I work for on my own in my spare time. I started networking like crazy. I remember I got a meeting with this guy who was a partner at Boston Consulting Group, Reginald Gilliard. He'll never listen to this, but thank you, Reggie. And he was the dean at the time at Chapman University. And the only thing we had in common is that he was an academy guy. And I'd never spoken to him before, reached out to him, and he said, I got 30 minutes on Tuesday. And so I got on a plane and I flew out there and got there Tuesday morning, met with him for 30 minutes. By the time he realized I'd flown out for this meeting, he gave me an hour. And then I drove back to the airport, got on a plane and flew back just to have an hour-long meeting with this guy and to say, help me, give me some of your advice, make a connection for me. And that's what I did. And so I just said, I'm going to do this through sheer force of will, and I'm going to outwork every other candidate. And someone, even if it's not, my very first choice, someone's going to see it and someone's going to take a chance. And that's what happened at Kearney. Somebody decided to take a chance on me. And when someone takes a chance on me, I don't disappoint. So that's the advice I would give to people. Like, if you're going to make a big switch, if you're listening to this podcast because you're about to make a big change in your career, you're about to go for something that you are not traditionally qualified for, you're going to have to outwork everyone else. You're going to have to do it. So get ready.
You're speaking to so many good points there, and something that I think is really good for the audience is I'm sure you can relate. Some of the best hires I've ever had were those ones of like, they don't fit the mold, right? But what they do have is those intangibles or the things of, I could teach you X, Y, and Z, but I can't teach you grit or I can't teach you integrity. And a lot of times that's how these folks show up. So even though the job description is asking for X, Y, and Z, you understand though those intangibles. Maybe this candidate actually has more, and we can teach them that stuff. And I'm so thankful I work for an organization like San Manuel and Yamava. Those success stories are all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And we literally, our PD director, Lynchell, if he's listening, he was in food and beverage, only food and beverage for his whole career arc. And now he's the director of player development because Jen, to her credit, saw that he had the intangibles. He understands about customer loyalty. He understands good service. He understands sales, right? But it didn't show up, but he had those intangibles in a way that, and to your point, he works really hard, right? And he's going to have to kind of level up to catch up to some. But I think that's just perfect dialogue, because I think as people are listening to this and pivots, and we're kind of coming full circle here, that, to really hone in on those intangibles, to going back to your North Star, I think your story is really important, because sometimes you might not fit the mold, but if you outwork everyone, if you have those intangibles, I think ultimately, you're going to have success.
I think you're totally right, Kyle, because it's eventually, through all the conversations you have, through all the resumes you submit, through all the things you do, eventually you're going to land in front of a Kyle or in front of a Chase or in front of a Jen or in front of a Lynchul, right? And we will see you. And we will see you for who you are, even if your resume isn't exactly lined up with what our business was looking for. We'll see you, and we'll give you that shot. But it's going to take work, and it's going to take passion and energy and fire, and you can't give up. If you give up, you're not going to win. If you keep going, it'll happen. It'll happen. So that's, I think.
Chase, thank you for the time today. I have just a couple final questions, kind of more quick in nature. Curious to know, is there a personal morning or evening routine that has benefited you that you would recommend to others?
Yeah. So for me, it's evening, because you probably don't want to talk to me before like 8:15 in the morning. And before I've had my like 2 coffees. Even the military could not turn me into a morning person, Kyle. It's just not me. I wish it was, but it's just not. But going to the gym, I think for me is a huge part of my routine. I try to go every day that I can. It's not every day, because I'm a person living his life, just like everybody who hears this and you, and I'm a father and a husband and a CEO, and I got a lot of responsibilities, but I need that time in the gym. It clears my thinking. It keeps my body healthy and maintained, and just aligns my mind. I think it's really important to have physical activity. I think it makes you a better thinker, and it just resets things for me. So I would say that is part one, and then part two is we're not perfect at it, but we try to always have dinner together as a family, which I think is really important. It's just the 3 of us, Kelsey, Clark, and I. But we try to always have dinner together as a family, and we try not to get up from the table until everyone's done, so that we can sort of have that family time. And then I try to read a book to Clark every night, just so that we can kind of have that one-on-one father and son time. And if I can go to the gym, have dinner with my family, and also read Clark a book, doesn't matter what happened at work. Doesn't matter if I had a bad day or I'm stressed about a client or whatever it is. I know that that part of my life is always there and always more important than anything going on at work. And it helps reground me so that I can wake up the next day fresh and ready to go.
That's fantastic. And I think you kind of answered the next question, but work-life balance, is that your approach? Is maybe some days my days might get a little hectic, but I always ground myself in these routines, whether that be dinner, reading to my son. Kind of what is your approach to work-life balance?
Yeah, work-life balance is really hard. As I said, Kelsey, she's an accomplished attorney here in town. She's a partner at a law firm and practices in wills, trusts, and estates. She's on the board of the state bar, right? She'll be president of the state bar, I think, within a few years. She works just as hard and has just as big of a career as I do. And so the two of us really have to be deliberate about the routines that we have together to make sure we're spending time together and as a family. And so, yeah, I think it's really just you have to have those routines. And just like Kyle, like, I mean, I know you go to the gym, right? If you skip the gym for a day, like if you wanted to go to the gym today, but you don't have time, it's okay. You can go tomorrow. But if you skip the gym for a month, you're going to feel it, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to feel it. So you're going to lose that routine. So what I would say is, routine is good, but it's not inflexible. But don't lose it. Don't lose that work-life balance. If you got to flex up and down, take the peaks, but make sure there are valleys so that you get to take care of yourself. Because if you don't, then what are you really working for at the end of the day?
That's great advice. What's something you nerd out on that maybe not a lot of people know? Because I get this sense of a really disciplined guy with a tremendous background, talking about going to the gym. What's something that Chase nerds out on that maybe not a lot of people know?
Okay, I'll just give it to you because probably most people won't watch till the end of this anyway. So, Chase is a huge video game nerd. I love playing video games, Kyle. It's been my biggest hobby since I was a little kid. So if I have free time at night or on the weekend, I'm probably playing video games, or I'm watching professional video game tournaments, which is super nerdy. Like I will even watch, Korean StarCraft tournaments in my spare time, just because I love the game and it's such a beautiful game. And watching it played at the highest level is very satisfying. So I play a lot of video games. I watch a lot of video games. It's super nerdy. I play chess every day. I love playing games. You're never going to find me at a pickup basketball court, but you might find me in the, 1v1 queue of some strategy game online. So I guess I'll see you there, is about all I can say. So that's probably the nerdiest thing about me, and I embrace it. It is what it is. So
we can relate, but I do defend, I believe that Mario and Super Mario and a lot of like the classic video games help you develop problem solving, right?
They do.
It rewarded curiosity, like, oh, that's interesting. I got to jump over there. And then like, oh, there's a box with a key. And like, I could nerd out in this conversation for a while, but I do want to know what was like your peak Apex Mountain video game playing system? Like, what was your kind of favorite system? Because I'm sure you had multiple systems.
Gosh, it would have been Xbox, and it would have been Halo 2. That's probably the most serious I've ever taken playing a video game, was deciding that I was going to reach. Did you play Halo 2 on the Xbox?
I did play Halo. Yes.
You're looking at a certified level 50 in the ranked queue, which no one will know what that means unless they play Halo. But that was my obsession. I was like, I am going to get there. Nothing's going to stop me. I'm going to sacrifice school. It was a horrible decision. I'm glad that I don't make those decisions anymore. But no, that probably Halo 2 on the OG Xbox was my most obsessed in terms of playing games. So, yeah.
Going more back to the academic side, is there a favorite book you have, or maybe a book you like to gift people?
Oh gosh, that's an interesting question. I read so many things. Can I tell you about my favorite thinker instead? Yeah. Because I've been thinking about this person a lot lately, and they didn't write a book, so they're a little bit hard to find things about. But my favorite thinker is John Boyd, and actually Peter Arceo and I were just having a conversation about John Boyd because he was asking me about which military thinkers I really liked. And so I think Peter's reading about Boyd right now too, which is great. So John Boyd was an air power theorist, and he's sort of the father of modern air dogfighting tactics. But much more than that. He's also really an influential thinker on like grand strategy. He's responsible for a lot of the Marine Corps' doctrine in terms of how the Marine Corps maneuvers units at large scale. He's responsible for how the military thinks about command and structure. He was also one of the architects of the United States strategy during the Gulf War. He's kind of like a strategist, if you will, within the military sphere, but he never wrote a book. So you gotta find his presentations and his essays and his slide decks and people who have written books about him and things like that. So if there was one sort of thing that I think people should read, if they want to understand how I think, I always tell them to read about John Boyd. And even today, I have a lot of friends who are fighter pilots, and John Boyd is studied heavily by every fighter pilot, probably globally, but at least within the United States, and makes up a large portion of what those folks think about when they're up in the sky. And it's just so widely applicable to business and to life even, and just the way that your internal thought process thinks, that I find it very foundational. And so I'd recommend everybody read about John Boyd. Google him, just read his Wikipedia entry. And then if you're interested, send me an email, chase.lane@lt.agency, and I'll send you more information on John Boyd. So I would say John Boyd is who I most talk about when I recommend people who to read about or what would help advance their thinking.
Awesome. And I'm sure people will be searching that and maybe take you up on that email offer.
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to get you out in the final question we ask everybody. And Chase, once again, just thank you for spending the time. But as you know, this platform is all about helping people get to that next level, whatever that looks like for them. So if you were going to provide 3 tips to someone saying, hey, if you want to take your career to the next level, here's the 3 tips I'd provide. What would those 3 tips be for you?
Yeah. And Kyle, thank you for the opportunity to do this. This has really been an engaging conversation. I really like the way that you think. I think we think very similarly about business, and it's just been an honor to have a conversation like this with you. So thank you. I really appreciate it. What I would say is I'm really just going to summarize things I've already talked about, but I'll summarize it in 3 points. Like, number one, you have to have a vision for your future. You have to have an idea of where you're going. You have to know which direction is north. Even if you don't know exactly how to get there, you need to be able to have an internal compass that points north and know that you're trying to go north, and always make progress towards that, even if it doesn't seem obvious or it's confusing about what you're doing at the time. Trust your gut, go north, and eventually you'll get to where you're going, or you'll get close, or you'll find a place you want to stop and rest along the way, but you'll get closer to where you're going. So always have a vision for your future. It's important. Number 2 would be maintain your values. Establish a system of core values for yourself, and make sure that every decision that you make is checked by those core values. Your company probably has a list of core values. See if they align with yours. Adopt them if they do. If not, you can find them in many other parts of your life. Your family might have core values, your church, your organization, community that you're part of, or they might form entirely organically in yourself. Mine are adopted from the Air Force Academy: integrity first, service before self, excellence in all I do. Those are mine. They align very well with LT's. And so, I've sort of adopted both at this point within this job. But maintain your values, because if you break your core values, then your house will fall, if you will, right? Like the foundation will crack, and it'll be very hard to continue to make progress going forward. Your compass is going to start spinning if you break your core values. So keep them. They're important and they're critical. And then finally, put in the work. You have to put in the work. Willingness to work hard, in my opinion, is worth more than how smart you are or think that you are. A lot of people underestimate themselves. It's more important than any degree. It's more important than your job experience. Don't forget that. If you're willing to put in the work, you're almost guaranteed success, because most people won't put in the work. Most people won't listen to a podcast about careers for what we've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes now. Most people won't listen for an hour and 10 minutes. But those of you hearing this right now did. And there's a reason for that. It's because you're putting in the work. And so don't forget to put in the work. Have a vision, maintain your values, put in the work. And if those 3 things don't make you successful, then I don't know what will.
Chase, awesome. Those are great tips. Thanks for providing so much value today. I wrote down so many good notes. I know our audience did as well. It's been an amazing career journey you've been on, and I'm actually excited to see where it takes you and LT and the group there and all the fantastic work you do. So once again, just thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kyle. I have so much admiration for Yamava and your organization and you yourself and what you all do. You are like a shining beacon, something that I want to emulate so much. So proud that we get to be your partners and so proud that you thought of me on this podcast. So thank you. I can't wait to talk to you or your team again soon. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks, Chase. Have a good one.
You too.
Check out more episodes at thenextlevelcareers.com.